If you asked me where it all started, I'd have to say it was one of those moments that felt almost too casual to be life-changing. I met Anna at a barbecue hosted by some mutual friends. It was one of those warm summer afternoons where the grill smoke clings to your clothes and everyone's half distracted by a game playing on a tiny TV out on the porch. She was there with a friend, laughing at something by the cooler when I first noticed her. Anna had this way about her, easygoing but sharp, like she was taking everything in but didn't need to be the center of attention. We struck up a conversation over a bad beer and some overcooked burgers, and from the moment we started talking, it just clicked. Nothing forced, nothing awkward. Just easy. Anna worked in marketing and had just started at a mid-sized agency downtown. I was getting my footing in construction management, fresh into my career and still figuring out how to keep a hard hat from falling off my head half the time. We bonded over our crazy schedules and swapped ridiculous work stories until the sun went down and people started filtering out. I asked for her number before she left, and to my surprise, she smiled and handed me her phone without hesitation. We went on our first date a few nights later, a casual dinner and a long walk by the river that ended with us sitting on a bench, talking until well past midnight. Everything about it felt easy, familiar, like reconnecting with someone you were supposed to meet all along. Things moved naturally after that. We started seeing each other a few times a week, then nearly every day. Before I knew it, my apartment had half of her stuff in it, sweatshirts on the back of the chair, a toothbrush next to mine, a stack of her books on the nightstand. It wasn't a conversation we had. It was something that just happened, like gravity pulling things into place. A year later, we decided to officially move in together. We found a small but cozy two-bedroom house with a patchy backyard and a porch that leaned a little to one side. Anna immediately started making it a home, hanging photos, painting the kitchen a color she swore was sunny, not blinding, filling the place with plants I was sure I'd forget to water. She had a way of making every space feel like it belonged to us. Those first few years felt like a steady climb. Work was demanding, but we always found time for each other, lazy Sundays in bed, spontaneous road trips, quiet dinners on the porch. We hosted friends on weekends, spent holidays with our families, and dreamed about what the future could look like. It wasn't perfect, but it felt solid, like we were building something real together. I remember thinking, more than once, that this was it. This was the life I wanted. Living with Anna was easier than I ever expected it to be. We found our rhythm almost immediately, like two people who already knew the steps to a dance they hadn't been taught. She had her routines, morning coffee with exactly 2 sugars, a late-night scroll through home design blogs, and I had mine, early workouts, weekend football marathons. Somehow, it all fit together without either of us having to bend too far. We split chores without fighting about it. She cooked most nights, I handled dishes and garbage duty. When something broke in the house, and it often did, between the sagging porch and the old wiring, I took care of it, and she was right there beside me, handing me tools and laughing when I inevitably made a mess of it before figuring it out. Weekends were our time. Sometimes we'd host little gatherings, nothing crazy, just a few friends, beers on the back deck, and way too much barbecue. Other times, we'd take off on last-minute road trips, no real destination in mind, just us and a badly curated playlist blasting through the speakers. Those drives are some of my favorite memories, windows down, Anna's hair whipping around her face as she sang along badly to songs we both loved. Kyle, my best friend, was always around too. He and I had been tight since middle school, and it felt natural that Anna fit into that part of my life as well. She and Kyle clicked immediately, sharing the same sarcastic sense of humor that could turn even a boring grocery trip into something hilarious. I loved seeing the two of them laugh together. It felt like a sign that the most important people in my life were exactly where they were supposed to be. Money was tight sometimes, especially early on. Anna picked up freelance gigs when she could, and I took extra shifts whenever there was overtime. But we never really fought about it. We had a shared goal to build something steady, something lasting. We dreamed about bigger things, a better house one day, maybe a little cabin somewhere we could escape to on weekends, a future that felt completely within reach because we were willing to work for it. Our families blended easily too. My parents adored Anna. She had a way of winning people over without even trying. She baked for my mom's birthday, dragged me to my dad's fishing trips, made them feel like she was part of the family right from the start. It made everything feel even more solid, like we weren't just building a life together. We were expanding it, connecting it to something bigger. Looking back, those years felt full of laughter, plans, ordinary routines that somehow felt extraordinary because of who I was sharing them with. There was no doubt in my mind that we were in this for the long haul. We had our lives laid out in front of us, wide open and waiting. It all felt so sure, so steady, exactly the way I thought it should be. The longer Anna and I were together, the more natural it felt, like breathing, like something I didn't even have to think about. We slipped into the kind of life people dream about without even realizing it. Not flashy, not perfect, but steady and full. Weekdays had their rhythm. I'd head off to work early, stopping for coffee at the same little shop downtown, while Anna stayed back, working from her freelance gigs at home or setting up meetings with her marketing clients. Most nights, she had something new she was excited about, a new design she was pitching, a crazy idea for a side project. I loved hearing her talk about her work, the way her eyes lit up when she was explaining her latest idea. It made me proud to be the guy she came home to at the end of every day. We had our traditions, small things that anchored us. Friday nights were always pizza and a movie, no matter how tired we were. Sunday mornings were for slow breakfasts. Anna loved making waffles, and somehow, they always came out just a little better when she made them. Even grocery shopping together became its own kind of ritual, complete with dumb inside jokes and arguments over which cereal to buy. Holidays were some of the best times. We spent Thanksgiving rotating between her family and mine, Christmas mornings in pajamas exchanging gifts we swore we wouldn't get each other but always did anyway. Birthdays turned into weekend-long celebrations. Anna had a gift for making even the smallest events feel like something special. Carl stayed close too. He was part of our little orbit, always stopping by with six-packs and bad advice, dragging us out for trivia nights or backyard bonfires. I never once thought twice about having him around so much. He was like a brother to me, and Anna treated him like family. If anything, it felt like we were lucky. How many people get to have both their best friend and their partner mesh so well? We even started talking more seriously about the future. Buying a bigger house one day, maybe even building one from the ground up. Anna talked about places she wanted to travel, and we made lists we pinned to the fridge: Italy, New Zealand, maybe Alaska if we were feeling adventurous. There was no set timeline, no pressure. Just dreams stacked quietly in the corner of our lives, waiting for the right moment. There were no big doubts, no big arguments, no moments where I lay awake wondering if we were making a mistake. Life wasn't just good. It was the kind of good you don't question, the kind you just trust will keep going, because how could it not? From where I stood, we were exactly where we were supposed to be. When Anna told me she was pregnant, it felt like everything shifted into a higher gear. We had always talked about having kids eventually, but neither of us were rushing. Life was good the way it was. But when she sat across from me one evening, hands shaking slightly, holding out a positive test, every plan I thought we were pacing ourselves towards suddenly felt immediate, real. I remember feeling this overwhelming flood of emotions: fear, excitement, disbelief. Anna looked just as stunned, but underneath it, I could see a spark in her eyes, something softer than I'd seen before. She kept saying she hadn't been sure if she was ready yet, but now that it was happening, she felt like it was meant to be. I believed her. How could I not? The next few months were a blur of doctor's appointments, nursery decorating, endless discussions about baby names. Anna threw herself into it completely, making lists, setting up registries, reading every article she could find about newborn care. She fussed over everything: the paint in the nursery, the crib, even the pattern of the tiny onesies we bought. I loved seeing her like that, so focused, so full of purpose. Kyle was around a lot during those months too. He helped paint the nursery, assemble the crib, even went to a couple of baby supply runs when my work schedule got crazy. It never seemed strange. Kyle had always been like family to me, and he was just as excited about the baby as anyone else. I joked that he was getting a free preview for whenever he decided to settle down himself. When our daughter, Lily, was born, it felt like stepping into an entirely different life. She was tiny, perfect, with a mess of dark hair and these impossibly big blue eyes. Holding her for the first time was like touching something sacred. I stood there in the hospital room, Anna exhausted but beaming, Lily sleeping in my arms, and thought, this is it. This is everything I've ever wanted. The first few weeks home were chaos, but the kind of chaos you don't mind. Sleepless nights, bottles everywhere, piles of laundry that seemed to regenerate no matter how fast we tackled them. Anna took to motherhood fast, instinctive, fierce, protective. I tried to keep up, doing midnight feedings, diaper changes, anything that would let her grab a few more minutes of rest. Kyle visited often, dropping off meals, helping out when we needed an extra hand. He joked about being Lily's honorary uncle and promised to teach her all the bad habits I wouldn't. I laughed it off, grateful for the help, grateful that our little circle was strong enough to weather the insanity of new parenthood. Looking back, I realized that those first few months after Lily's birth were some of the happiest and most fragile times of my life. I didn't know it then, but everything I thought was solid had already started to crack beneath my feet. The first few months after Lily was born, everything felt like a whirlwind. Sleepless nights, endless bottles, the constant rhythm of diapers, baths, and late-night rocking. It was exhausting, sure, but also oddly comforting, the three of us wrapped up in our own little world. For a while, that was enough. But somewhere along the way, small things started to creep in. Nothing huge at first. Just moments that left a strange taste in my mouth. Anna became different. It wasn't anything obvious, nothing you could point to directly. She was still a good mom, attentive, patient, but with me, there was a new kind of distance. I would catch her zoning out during conversations, half listening when I talked about work or plans for the weekend. Little things that didn't seem important at first. She was on her phone more often too. Late nights on the couch, scrolling, smiling at messages she never mentioned. When I'd ask who it was, she'd just wave me off, just friends from my mom group, or just silly stuff, nothing you'd care about. I told myself not to be jealous. New moms need support networks. That's what every book and every blog said. But it gnawed at me anyway. Kyle was around a lot too. Still helping with little repairs around the house, still cracking jokes and playing the doting uncle. Sometimes he and Anna would sit out on the porch after dinner while I cleaned up inside, their laughter drifting back through the open window. I didn't think much of it at first. Kyle had been part of our lives forever. It was normal. It was good, even. And yet, sometimes when I walked into the room unexpectedly, the conversation would stop a little too quickly. They'd glance at each other, and then at me, and the air would shift. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to notice. I shrugged it off. Told myself I was tired. Overthinking. Paranoid from all the changes in our lives. That's what stress does, right? It makes you see ghosts where there aren't any. But deep down, a quiet unease started to settle into my chest. Not loud. Not constant. Just there. Waiting. I still trusted Anna. Or at least, I wanted to. We had built too much together, gone through too much, for me to throw suspicion at her over a few weird conversations and too many nights staring at her phone. Still, some nights I'd find myself lying awake in the dark, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the baby monitor, and wondering why something that used to feel so easy now felt just slightly off. I told myself it was all in my head. But part of me was starting to wonder what my heart already knew. Over the next few months, the unease I tried so hard to ignore only got harder to shake. It wasn't anything big. It never was. It was the way Anna started locking her phone when she never used to. The way she'd disappear for long stretches under the excuse of running errands, and come back with nothing more than a coffee in her hand. The way Kyle's name came up just a little too often when she was telling stories about her day. I tried to reason with myself. Kyle had always been close. He was practically family. Anna had known him almost as long as she'd known me. It wasn't strange for her to mention him. It wasn't strange for him to stop by, to be involved, to care about Lily like an uncle would. But something about it felt different now. I started noticing how animated Anna would get when she talked about Kyle. How her face would light up in a way that didn't always happen when she talked about me. How her laughter with him seemed lighter, freer, compared to the tired smiles she saved for me at the end of the day. Sometimes when Kyle came over, I'd catch these fleeting moments, quick glances, inside jokes that I didn't quite understand, conversations that seemed to be happening just under the surface of the ones I was part of. They would share a look across the room, and it would feel like I wasn't even there. It wasn't proof. It wasn't even anything I could really confront. It was just a feeling, a heavy, sinking feeling that I tried my best to bury. I focused on Lily. I poured myself into being the best father I could be. Diaper changes, nighttime feedings, first words, first steps. Those moments were pure, untouched. She was a bright, beautiful force in my life, and I wanted to believe that was enough to keep everything else in place. Some nights, Anna would crawl into bed beside me, curl up like she always had, and for a moment, everything felt okay. Normal. Safe. But then she'd shift away in her sleep, turning her back to me without even realizing it, and the distance between us would feel like miles. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be the husband who questioned his wife over a few bad feelings. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to be right, either. Instead, I told myself what people in love always tell themselves when something feels off. It's just a phase. It'll pass. But deep down, the part of me I was trying to silence was already bracing for the impact. By the time Lily turned 2, I was starting to feel like I was pouring everything I had into a life that somehow felt like it was slipping further away from me. I threw myself into my work harder than ever, not because I wanted to be away from Anna and Lily, but because providing for them felt like the only thing I could control. Promotions started coming my way, a bigger paycheck, more opportunities. I grabbed onto all of it, thinking that maybe if I could give them everything they wanted, everything they needed, it would fix whatever silent thing was drifting between us. I didn't think twice when Anna said her car was getting too unreliable. I took a bonus check I had been saving and bought her a new one, a modest SUV, safe and roomy, perfect for her and Lily. She squealed when I handed her the keys, threw her arms around me, kissed me hard enough to make me forget all the doubts gnawing at the corners of my mind. For a little while, I let myself believe that it meant something, that I had done something right, that we were still us. College savings for Lily became the next project. I opened an account in her name, setting aside a slice of every paycheck without fail. Every milestone felt heavier now, loaded with meaning I didn't know how to explain. I wasn't just investing in her future. I was investing in the hope that our family would stay whole long enough for her to need it. Kyle, of course, was still around. Always willing to help. Always a little too available when Anna needed something, running errands, fixing things around the house, babysitting when we needed a night out. Sometimes I'd come home and find the two of them sitting at the kitchen table, talking low and close, laughing at something that stopped being funny the second I walked through the door. I'd feel it, that tightening in my chest, that flicker of cold that no amount of rationalizing could fully explain away. I hated myself for feeling suspicious. I hated the voice in my head that whispered questions late at night when I watched Anna sleeping beside me, her arm thrown carelessly across the bed, her breathing steady and unaware. I told myself that Kyle was just helping, that Anna was just tired, that I was the one creating problems by doubting them. But the thing about doubt is that it grows in the dark. And no matter how much I tried to drown it with logic, with love, with work and sacrifice and good intentions, it kept twisting itself deeper into me, coiling around the parts of my life I used to trust without thinking. Looking back, I realize I spent a lot of that time clinging to the life I thought we had, not the one that was actually there. I wanted to believe that if I gave enough money, time, energy, devotion, then whatever was wrong would right itself. That love was enough to beat back whatever invisible thing was eating away at the edges of our lives. But love isn't a shield against betrayal. It's just the thing that makes the knife cut deeper when it finally comes. It started with a stupid conversation at work, one of those casual, throwaway discussions that you usually forget 5 minutes later. A coworker was joking about how different his daughter looked compared to him, and someone mentioned those home DNA tests that people use for fun, to trace their ancestry or check on random health stuff. I laughed along, but when I got home that night, the idea stuck in my mind longer than it should have. It wasn't that I didn't trust Lily was mine. I loved her. She was my daughter in every way that mattered. But there had always been little things that didn't line up if I was being honest with myself, subtle things. Her eye color, the shape of her smile, the way she looked more like Anna every day, but less like me. I shoved those thoughts aside 100 times. They felt disloyal, cruel even. But that night, sitting in the living room while Anna texted away on the couch and Lily played with her dolls on the floor, I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was easy enough to order the kit. A swab, a few signatures, a prepaid envelope. I didn't tell Anna. I didn't tell anyone. I told myself it was just curiosity, just a way to silence the ugly little whisper in the back of my mind once and for all. I didn't even think about it again until the email arrived a few weeks later. I opened the message sitting at my desk, half distracted, already planning my day. It only took a few seconds to read, but those seconds split my life into 2 parts. The part before I knew the truth, and the part after. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to change, for the numbers to rearrange themselves, for the words to rewrite into something that made sense. They didn't. They stayed there, black and final, while the floor dropped out from under me. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. My mind reeled, flipping through memories like photographs, desperately trying to find an answer that didn't exist. Every smile, every hug, every night feeding Lily while Anna slept peacefully beside me. What was real? What was a lie? The pieces started clicking into place whether I wanted them to or not. Anna's distance, Kyle's constant presence, the easy way they laughed together when they thought I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't just some stranger. It wasn't an accident. It was my best friend. The realization hit so hard I had to grip the edge of the desk to keep from falling over. I wanted to scream, to smash the computer, the walls, everything in sight. But instead, I sat there, frozen in a silence so complete it felt deafening. Lily wasn't mine. And somewhere deep down, no matter how much I had loved her, no matter how much of myself I had poured into the life we built, I knew that everything had already been stolen from me long before I opened that email. Everything I thought was mine, my wife, my daughter, my best friend, had been a lie. And now, I had to decide what I was going to do about it. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't scream or throw things or storm the house like some wild man. No, when I moved with purpose. Quiet, cold, controlled. If they thought they could rip my life apart and leave me standing in the ruins, they were about to learn who I really was. First, I handled Kyle. He worked for my company, had for years. I'd vouched for him more times than I could count, given him opportunities he didn't deserve because he was my best friend. I emailed HR the next morning. Termination, effective immediately. I didn't give a reason beyond breach of trust, but it didn't matter. His name was wiped from the system by noon. No farewell parties. No warning. Just gone, like he had never existed. I didn't bother warning him either. Let him find out when his work badge stopped unlocking the door. Let him explain it to his girlfriend or his friends or whoever still cared enough to listen to his pathetic excuses. I wasn't wasting another second of my life on him. Then it was time for Anna. I waited until a Saturday, when I knew she'd be home. I walked through that door with a calm I didn't even recognize in myself. She was in the kitchen, making lunch, Lily playing quietly in the living room. She smiled when she saw me, like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't been lying to my face every day for years. I didn't say a word. I just walked past her, upstairs, and started grabbing her things. Clothes, makeup, jewelry, anything that was hers went into garbage bags without ceremony. Then I opened the bedroom window and started tossing them out onto the lawn one by one. Shirts, dresses, boxes of shoes tumbling through the air like pieces of a life that didn't belong here anymore. Anna came running up the stairs, shouting my name, asking what I was doing. When she tried to grab my arm, I pulled away and looked her dead in the eyes. "You're done," I said, my voice low, steady. "Get your stuff and get out. You and her." Her face crumpled, confusion flipping to anger in a heartbeat. She started crying, blubbering about mistakes and second chances, about how it wasn't what I thought, about how we could fix this if we just talked. But I wasn't interested in her lies anymore. I wasn't giving her a stage to perform on. I pointed at the door. "Go live with Kyle. Or whoever else you think will clean up your mess. You're not my problem anymore." I watched her gather up Lily, still sobbing, still begging under her breath. But I didn't soften. Not for a second. She had chosen this. She had chosen him. She had chosen a life without me the moment she decided to lie. Once she was gone, I changed the locks, blocked her number, deleted every trace of her from my phone, my computer, my life. She tried reaching out, texts, calls, voicemails swinging between rage and pleading, but I didn't answer. I didn't even listen. She wanted freedom? She could have it. Without me. Without my support. Without the life she stole and pretended was hers to ruin. For the first time in a long time, the house was quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lost in it. I felt free. The first few weeks after Anna and Lily left were strange in a way I wasn't prepared for. The house echoed differently. The quiet wasn't the suffocating kind anymore. It was clean, stripped of all the lies that had poisoned it. I spent a lot of time just sitting outside on the back steps with a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood move on around me. No deadlines. No pretending. No keeping up appearances. At first, I didn't think about dating. I didn't even think about rebuilding anything. I just needed to feel normal again, whatever normal meant now. I threw myself into work, into small house projects I had been ignoring for years. I repainted the living room, ripped out the old carpet, replaced the squeaky door hinges that used to drive Anna crazy. It wasn't about fixing the house. It was about fixing the parts of myself that had been slowly unraveling without me even realizing it. For a while, that was enough. Then one Saturday afternoon, when I was running errands I didn't even really need to run, I met Megan. It wasn't some sweeping romantic moment. I was standing in line at a hardware store, buying new shelves I probably wouldn't install for another 6 months, and she was ahead of me, struggling to balance a handful of supplies. One of her paint cans slipped from her arm, and without thinking, I stepped forward and caught it. She laughed, a real, easy laugh, and we ended up talking for 10 minutes while the line barely moved. She was rebuilding her kitchen, she said, one stubborn project at a time. I made a dumb joke about how I was still trying to rebuild my whole life, and she didn't flinch or look uncomfortable. She just smiled in that quiet way people do when they understand more than they're willing to say out loud. We got coffee a few days later. Nothing serious, no heavy expectations. Just two people who had been knocked around by life a little, sitting across from each other and realizing that maybe, just maybe, the worst things you go through aren't the end of your story. Megan didn't ask for details about Anna or Kyle. She didn't dig into my past like it was something she needed to fix. She just listened when I offered pieces of it. Small truths dropped here and there like breadcrumbs. She didn't offer pity. She offered presence. I didn't know what would come of it. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. But sitting across from her, sipping a too-hot coffee, watching the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed at something I said, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the desperate kind. Not the maybe I can put everything back the way it was kind. The real kind. The kind that says, you're still here. You're still standing. And there's still more life left to live. Some scars don't ever fully fade. I know that now. There are moments when the past brushes against me, a photo buried deep in a drawer, a random memory triggered by a familiar song, and for a second, I feel the echo of it all. But that's all it is now. An echo. Not something that defines me anymore. There was a time when I thought betrayal would be the thing that broke me. That losing Anna, Lily, and Kyle all at once would leave a permanent hole too big to fill. I imagined carrying that grief like a badge for the rest of my life, warning everyone else how dangerous it was to love too much, to trust too easily. But it didn't turn out that way. Instead, it stripped me bare. Took everything I thought I needed, everything I thought made me who I was, and left me standing there, raw and real. And from that place, the one I thought would destroy me, I started building something better. I don't think about Anna much now. Or Kyle. They made their choices, and they have to live with them. I don't carry their shame on my back anymore. I don't replay the fights we never had or the apologies I never got. Some things just are what they are, awful, ugly, and irreversible. What I do think about are the simple things. The quiet mornings with Megan, sipping coffee and laughing over dumb headlines. The steady sound of my own breathing when I go for long walks with no destination in mind. The peace of coming home to a place that feels like it's truly mine, a place built on honesty and hard work, not lies and stolen moments. Life now isn't perfect. It isn't some Hollywood redemption arc with fireworks and sweeping music. It's quieter than that. Simpler. Better. It's dinners cooked together in a too-small kitchen, weekend road trips to nowhere, conversations that don't need fixing because they don't come from broken places. I don't know where this new road will take me, but for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm grateful for it, because in the end, betrayal didn't ruin me. It revealed me. And standing here now, on the other side of it all, I can finally say it. I won.